Hey guys, I'm Rahul and I'm a co-founder of Paradigm alongside my friend Sahil. Together, we created Paradigm to prepare you for change. At Paradigm, we aim to educate you on topics that are essential yet neglected in school and university. These topics are essential when you make the transition into the real world. And this podcast is available on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So check out our Instagram page, which is Paradigm uh, edu for more updates regarding Paradigm. And today I'm alongside Mia, who's a specialist in this topic we will be discussing today and is a senior partner at Paradigm.
So hey everyone, as Rahul introduced me, I'm Mia Zerikat and I'm a senior partner at Paradigm in charge of the topic of legal work. I'm a Jordanian with an interest in studying law or something in that field in the future. So today we'll be discussing the legalities of studying in the UK, the life of a law student, and the differences experienced by students transitioning between the UAE and the UK, with our guests from the Legal Leap.
Hello, everyone.
Hey guys. Okay, so if you guys could introduce yourselves individually first.
All right, so hey guys, my name is Zainab and I lived in the UAE. I grew up here and went to school here, but I'm currently about to start my second year studying law at the University of York in the UK.
And I'm Reem, same thing. I was raised here and I went to school here, graduated from here, and now I'm about to go into my second year studying law at the University of Leeds.
Oh, that's...
And so we co-founded this page called The Legal Leap, which you can check out on all platforms. And we just aim to help make the transition as smooth as possible for anyone wanting to study law in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. The initiative kind of behind setting up our page was just thinking of what was already out there and what wasn't. So we know plenty of people have legal blogs that are documenting their legal journeys, but that's more aimed towards people who are already a part of that, so who are already law students. So we really wanted to help the people who wanted to make that leap essentially from finishing secondary and high school and going into university and equip them with all the information that they could possibly need.
Okay.
I just wanted to personally say that I've looked through your page and what you guys are doing is amazing. As myself and Rahul were both potentially interested in studying law, and there's so much useful information that you guys are putting out, and I haven't seen anything like it before. So great job on that.
Yeah, definitely. One of our aims was because we were in your shoes exactly, and we were equally as lost, and we would have loved to have a resource like this. So we thought we would put this out there and we would like help people who were in our shoes, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. We would have loved to have such a resource because if you think about it, schools can help you in this process, but only so much. They can't really have a specialist, in-depth pool of resources for every single university subject that's being offered because you never know what people in the school are going to want to be interested in.
Exactly.
Right.
So I personally wanted to ask why the UK? Law is a popular course and it's taught very differently all around the world. So why did you guys choose to study in the UK?
Zainab, you want to go for it?
Yeah. So for me, I think the underlying reason, along with a lot of people, is the length of time that it takes to become a qualified lawyer in the UK as opposed to places like the US and Canada. Like even, I don't know in other places, but like especially in New York, we have so many Canadian and American students just because of how much less time it takes. Because basically in the UK, you can go in to study law as an undergraduate. So you graduate from high school and you apply to the university to study a law degree in a law course and you get onto that, and then afterwards you just have to qualify. Whereas in the US you have to, and Canada as well actually, you have to go in, do an undergraduate and then finish those 4 years, and only then can you even apply for law school. So the whole process is a lot longer.
And then law school is another 4 years. So it's a total of 8 years before you can sit the bar and qualify, whereas in the UK in total with qualifying it could take at least like 4 years.
Yeah.
And I think so as Mia mentioned, so Mia and I were both students that were quite interested in law, and it's, I guess, a field we're still considering. But I think one thing you mentioned, which was, I guess, the length of the course. So obviously in the UK, unlike any other place, it's essentially 4 years, and it just speeds up the whole process. However, I wanted to ask why law? Because again, for Mia and I, although the time obviously helps, and that's like a great factor, like pushing us to go to the UK studying law. But at the same time, there's also the fear that I guess a lot of students have with going to the UK for law is because the UK seems to be or is perceived to be slightly more rigid in terms of not allowing you to like change your course itself if you
Mm.
don't actually I wind up liking law, there's not much you can do, and there's not much like room over there. So, how did you guys know that you wanted to study law?
So for me personally, I really enjoy a lot of different topics, and I think law is such a broad topic and it covers so many different areas. Like you have your criminal law, you have constitutional law. So like you touch on politics, you touch on economics, you touch on health law. And I think that's what really drew me to it. It's how broad it was, and like you don't get specific until you specialize later in life. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I chose it.
For me, before I say about like me personally and how like I got into like being interested in law, I just want to say that if you guys are thinking about going into law, whoever is listening on here, make sure that you really want to, because the
Yeah.
amount of hard work that needs, like if you don't want to do it, you're not going to get anywhere with it. Forget about
Mm,
like being able to transfer. Like afterwards, people also have to realize just how competitive law in the UK is. It's super competitive and it's super difficult to get placements and experience, especially once you graduate with training contracts and all that, that like if you don't have a genuine interest for it, that's going to come through and it's not going to help you. Now, for me personally, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that, oh, I've wanted to become a lawyer since I was like 5 years old or whatever. That was not the case. For me, it was more basically, I'm a very indecisive person, okay?
yeah.
So I'm a very, very indecisive person when it comes to things about me personally. So in terms of when it came to choosing law or like choosing whatever degree that I was going to do, I kind of used a process of elimination to figure out what I was good at, what I wasn't, what I enjoyed based on the subjects that I had taken. And it was between law and economics for me. Those were the two that I was choosing between. So I kind of was veered off of economics because of the maths aspect. And anyone who knows me knows I'm not that great at maths. So once I came to law, I was like, okay, I can't just choose my degree based on like a process of elimination. That's not going to work out for me in the long run. It's that I got some experience. So the summer before my final year at school, I spent a few weeks doing an internship in Al Tamimi, which is one of the Middle Eastern law firms here. And I really enjoyed it. That's something that was like, yes, like I was right in what I was thinking. Because I know I have a friend who did a law, had her heart set on law, and then she did an internship and she absolutely hated it, and it veered her away from studying law altogether. So I do think that getting experience, especially here, it's a lot easier, that if you can, go for it.
Definitely. That's a very,
I
very
just
important point.
I just wanted to say that Rahel and I also have interned at Tamimi, and it was a great experience, I think, for the both of us. So that's pretty cool that we have that in common. I
Mhm.
wanted to ask, you said that it's a lot easier to gain job experience here, but is there any way that students can apply for internships and work experience to their universities, or is it an individual or um, a by student initiative that they have to take?
Okay,
Like,
so it depends on the university, but the university definitely promotes careers. And the only thing with internships, I would say, is that they're just so competitive sometimes that a lot of people can't get them. And that's the main barrier. But otherwise, universities, if anything, they promote opportunities for internships. They like send weekly updates on different opportunities you can apply for. And they definitely help to push the career side.
they give you, the thing is, it's not something where like you apply through your university and then your university sends off your application to firms or wherever you're going to. They give you all the resources and equip you and are like, oh, we're happy to help and look over any applications that you have. But it is essentially you going and seeing opportunities that are being put on, such by places like the Law Society, which is if you're going to go study law in the UK or not, or you plan on going into law afterwards, I would definitely suggest to make use of your law society, because usually law societies are sponsored and have a lot of connections with a lot of big firms that you might be interested in. So they'll have a lot of information, but it is about you taking those opportunities like upon yourself and going and researching them, seeing if it's something you'd be interested in and applying. And the applying is not easy.
Yeah.
It's usually not just like a quick process. You have to like dedicate time to it.
Right. And I think definitely, I think internships and experience is a really important aspect because, as you mentioned, the friend of yours that was so set on law and then had an internship and then like realized that maybe this isn't for me. So I think they can really help out in terms of experience and realizing what to do. And I think in a way, that's how it was for me as well. Like when Mia and I went to Ultimate, I think it was definitely a great experience. Apart from the fact that I couldn't go there for 80% of the time because they filed the wrong paperwork, I think. So
Oh no.
yeah, so it was supposed to be a week internship. I only went there for I think 2 days, while Mia enjoyed her week there. But essentially, what I wanted to ask and wanted to get to know is when you guys applied to the UK, usually as kids, our parents always, whenever we travel, our parents always handle like the visa side of things. And it's just like a word you hear and you're like, it's fine, they'll deal with it. But now, since you guys have like grown as well and you guys are law students, um, what can you tell us about the process of applying for a student visa or visas in general to do with the UAE and UK?
Okay, so first of all, the process can either be really easy for you or really bad. It depends on your luck. For me, it was really easy. Basically, to start the visa process, you have to have an unconditional offer from your university. So that usually happens after you've gotten your results on A levels or IB or whatever. They send you something called a CAS number, and you use that to start your online application for the visa, where you'll just be required to input your personal details. They'll have to answer some questions, and I think you'll have to put in some history about your parents, like some bank statements and like where they studied, all of that. Once you finish the online application, you apply for an appointment at the UK Visa Processing Center, which is in the city. And you just have to go through you go to your appointment, and they just review your papers. They take some biometric information on you, like fingerprints and an eye scan, and then you and your luck. If you get your visa the next day, if you get your visa in a week's time, if you get your visa in 2 weeks' time, you can pay to speed up the process. But I personally didn't pay and I got mine on time. Some people paid and didn't get theirs on time. So it's really you and your luck. And so basically what they give you is they give you a stamp on your passport. This isn't your actual visa. The stamp on your passport allows you to enter into the UK. And once you've fully registered with your university, they give you a card called a BRP, which essentially is your visa for being there. So it's not something on your passport, it's actually a physical card that you use. Yeah. And that's your visa. And as we're students, we have something called a Tier 4 visa. And that means we're eligible for certain things in terms of working in the UK as well. So I don't know if Zainab, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, so also I wouldn't make the mistake that I initially made, like thankfully it was like early on, was that you, like if you're an international student, you're going to need a Tier 4 student visa, like everybody does. Because for me and Reem as well, like we have Canadian passports. So just to get into the UK, if we're just going on holiday or visiting or whatever, we don't actually need a visa. So I assumed, oh, because I have a Canadian passport and I don't usually need a visa, then I'll be fine. But you do definitely need that. And so the thing is with the visa that's tricky is that you have to time it for when you think you're going to get it and when you think you're going to travel, because that stamp that she said that they give you is only valid for 30 days. So you need to get into the UK within a month of them issuing your visa. So it's kind of a quick turnaround time if you think about it. If like results day had just passed and let's say things were normal and everyone would be going to university, you'd have like kind of like that month turnaround time to get that sorted. But yeah, it's really important to get that BRP and hold on to it, because
Yeah.
I lost mine at one point and it was pretty bad. It was towards the end of March, or like in March, when I was about to come back like from York. And it was like I think in like the last week of me being there, and I lost my BRP and I was fully like freaking out, because the thing is, if I lost it, I wouldn't have been able to come back, because you can't, so they give you that stamp in your passport, right? But you can't actually physically pick up your BRP unless you're in the UK. They only issue it in the UK. They don't ship it internationally for you to come in. So if I lost it and I had to go through the process of reapplying, I would have had to wait for it to come
wow.
out. And then I may have been stuck there, because you know how they lock down the borders for like UAE
Yeah.
citizens,
Oh
residents.
no.
Just like really high like levels of anxiety for a few days. And then
Yeah.
thankfully, some good Samaritan like dropped it off at the uni, and I was like freaking out running to get it. I was like, no way. I was lucky. I was really lucky. Now
Yeah.
I hold on to that thing like it's my baby.
Yeah, like definitely make sure it's in a safe place. If you need to use your ID for any reason in the UK, you can use your UAE ID. Don't use your BRP. Keep your BRP safe.
I
There's
think
no digital copy. You need the hard copy. Like there's no other way of going around.
Yeah,
No,
like
you
you're
need your hard copy.
yeah,
oh no.
Wow.
it's like a card. It's like an ID card that they give you, and like take care of it, because it's
Yeah.
your way to get into the country.
Noted.
Last thing you want to do is get stuck in a place and hear like an absolute shouting from your parents afterwards. So
Yeah, I
Yep.
remember. I looked everywhere. I was convinced. I was like, it's fine. I'm gonna find it. Because I lost it in town, and in New York, the campus is a bit. It's like a 30-minute bus drive. Like you can't just walk. And I like retraced my steps, and I had all the buses in New York looking for my ID. And then when I like gave up, I messaged my dad. I was like, Dad, please don't kill me. Like, are you kidding me? He's now to do something like this. But it was okay. It worked out in the end.
Thankfully, it worked out. So I actually wanted to ask, Reem, you mentioned the restrictions and like work, um, what's it called? The chances of getting work and the restrictions on it, on the tier 4 visa. Do you guys have any idea or have any sort of summary on what those restrictions are?
Yeah, so basically, when you're on a tier 4 visa, you're allowed to work for up to 20 hours per week. So that's your limit. So if you get a part-time job, or like if in your second year you become a brand ambassador, whatever job that you wind up taking, if you choose to do so, is that it can't exceed that 20-hour limit per week.
Yeah, that's just the main restriction. Other than that, if you have your visa and it's a valid visa, they can employ you. They can't discriminate against you because you're an international student. It's just that specific time frame that they have to follow.
right. Okay. I think well, I think there's quite an interesting story to be honest. And I'm gonna make sure not to forget my ID, not that like I plan to lose it. But I wanted to ask, so UK and UAE are two countries you guys have, spent a lot of time in. So if you were to do a bit of a comparison, because obviously UAE is quite different in the sense that we tend to be slightly more sheltered here, whereas in the UK it's like I guess a hub for university students as well, but it's also going through a quite interesting time with Brexit and etc. But how do you think how would you compare the two of them in terms of your experience as a student, whether it's internship, whether it's just job experience? How would you compare the two?
So there's definitely a difference between, like you said, here we're a bit more sheltered. It's a bit more comfortable here as a student. Like even in high school, everything, like teachers gave us all the resources we need. They like devoted their life there. There's definitely a big transition to when you go to university, and like there's 400 other people who are doing the same exact thing as you, and you just have to find a way to stand out. And that definitely was one of my struggles, like being like realizing that, oh my god, I'm just one person out of the 400 people in just my cohort, let alone the 1,200 people studying law at once. That was the biggest shock to me personally. I don't know, Zainab has anything else?
Yeah, I think for me more, the thing that surprised me most for me that when I experienced is that for me, like in the past, like the UK is not an unfamiliar place for me, because like uh what usually during like the summer holidays, my family will always be in London at some point, and we have friends there. Like we know people, we know the place there. But when I moved, because I was familiar with it when I actually moved there and started living in New York. I was quite shocked that I was experiencing like culture shock, because you have to think about it like, you also have to think about when you're applying to universities, the international communities that are there. Because in mine, especially around the area where I was living, there weren't that many international students at all. So you kind of get culture shock when you're thrown into a situation where you're living with complete strangers that are from completely different backgrounds to you, have different mindsets, have been raised differently. Because at the end of the day, most people, when you're here and you're in school and you're with your friends, it's those same people that have been there for a while, you know? And that you're raised with the same culture and the same mindset. And it's just kind of
Yeah, of
adapting
course.
getting into
Yeah.
that.
Like obviously
So,
Mia and I haven't been in university, but we can only imagine like the major difference.
So I wanted to ask, out of personal interest, and I'm sure you guys have some insight onto this, the difference between common and civil law, because I know that at least Dubai has a combination of the two in the free zones and the Islamic law. Um, how is employability after you complete the 4 years in the UK, and are the skills that you learn in common law applicable to civil, and vice versa?
Okay, so first I'll take you through the difference between the two. So common law is based on case law. So there's a thing called precedent. I don't know if you're familiar with the word. So basically any past cases become law, like the rulings of the cases become law, and that's the common law system. There's no like set rules. There are statutes which are passed through the government, but in terms of law from court, it's set by cases. Whereas civil law is a coded law system where there are rules saying you cannot murder people. And this is the definition of murder. Like it doesn't come from past cases. Now, in terms of having a common law degree and practicing in the UAE, it depends on where you qualify and what your qualification is. So the route that I'm planning to take and Zainab's planning to take is we want to become solicitors and we want to work in commercial law. And so we have to complete the LPC, which is another qualification after university. And that qualifies us to become solicitors practicing in the UK, and we can transfer this qualification to the UAE.
Yeah. So like just going back on Reem's point about the case law precedent, is that basically in the UK, there's a hierarchy of courts. So you can go all the way up to the Supreme Court, which I'm sure that you'll have heard of. So cases that are set in courts are binding on all the courts below them. So the UK court is the highest court in the UK. So if a case gets all the way up to the Supreme Court and a decision is made, all the courts below that have to abide by the decision that was made there and like the reasoning behind it. And so yeah, in terms of the employability aspect, so basically you essentially become a qualified lawyer after, like from start to finish, from when you enter your law degree, you become a qualified lawyer 6 years later, okay? Because basically, this is if we're talking about solicitors, which is what, but there's obviously a barrister route, which is different and we're not as familiar as, because that's not something that we've been looking into as much. So you graduate, you do your 3 years, which is your undergraduate degree, your law degree, and then you do an LPC. Now, within those 3 years, if you get the chance and you get a vacation scheme, it's usually after the summer, like typically, it can be whenever to be honest, but typically after your second year studying law, if you manage to score a place on a 2-week internship with a law firm that you've applied to, that you've gone through the process of getting, and if they like you at the end of it, they'll give you an interview for a training contract. Now, if you get this training contract, that is the 2 years after so usually if you manage to get a training contract with a law firm before you graduate, they'll usually fund your LPC. So they'll pay for your LPC, which is the course that you take to essentially like be able to qualify. It's like the bar, essentially equivalent in the US. And then once you finish that LPC, you train with that firm for 2 years in different departments, finding out which areas of law you prefer or whatever. And then after those 2 years are completed, that's when you're officially classed as like a newly qualified lawyer.
So I wanted to ask, obviously you said you're not very familiar with the route of that you would take if you were to become a barrister. But why exactly did you both choose or decide that you wanted to be solicitors, and why specifically in commercial law versus the other branches?
So for me personally, with commercial law, I'll answer the commercial law one first. It's a really diverse industry because you deal with so many different clients, and like you can literally deal with clients in the fashion industry, in the oil and gas industry. So it's very diverse. And within commercial law, there's so many different areas and new emerging areas like data technology, and there's also banking, finance, there's tax. Like it, when you're qualifying, you don't specialize straight away. You rotate between 4 different departments of law before you decide on one. And to me, I think that's what kind of draws me more to it, because it's so diverse and like you can try out different things before you settle on one. And for me personally, if qualifying as a barrister isn't as useful for me if I wanted to come back and work here in the UAE, because only Emirati nationals can advocate in court in the UAE. As a non-Emirati person, I can't do that. So for me, like looking at future prospects, if I want to come back here, having a solicitor qualification is better.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like the whole solicitor barrister is just quite a personal preference, I guess. And a lot of people like differ in that sense. And obviously, coming back to the UAE, like when Mia and I had our internship, it was, like it was quite interesting to see because all like the non-UAE nationals, they like obviously even though some of them were solicitors, they tend to have the job or worked more as barristers sometimes because they couldn't essentially, practice in court. So regarding that aspect, I wanted to ask you guys another really important thing and something we wanted to learn is the student rights or the rights of, I guess, um, people and workers in whether it's the UK or UAE. And I think it's often something that's quite neglected, whether it's protesters' rights, because as we can see the protests in America, a lot of a lot of people don't know what their rights are, and whether it's to do with police brutality, I guess. But how important do you think it is to know like your I guess your rights and responsibilities as a student, like more to do with the UK?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's really important to know your rights. And I'm not sure about other universities, but for my university, they really like help supported with that in the first month. Like our accommodation alone gave us like a welcome induction talk where they covered like certain legal rights that we have. So there's a thing in the UK called a TV license, which means that you can't you can't own your own TV without having the specific license, but because in the UK all channels are available no matter which TV you turn on. So I think that was like something they really stressed about. They made sure that we were aware that we couldn't have a TV without a TV license, and they just covered like certain laws that we should have been aware of. And same thing with the law school. They covers like just general things that they want us to be aware of, and they make sure that we're aware of it, like in terms of voting fraud, in terms of voting rights as well. They really like make sure that, because they have such a large number of international students that they know are a bit lost coming into this new world, and so they want to try and make the transition as smooth as possible. And this is one of the aspects that they make sure to cover, because they know a lot of students might be anxious because they're not sure if a certain thing's allowed there because it might have been allowed in their country.
Yeah, I think yeah, like once again, the whole point about like students feeling lost, like I think that has a lot to do with, I guess, what we at Paradigm are trying to do. Sort of trying to bridge that gap as well as what you guys are trying to do. We have all these organizations, whether it's to do with law, something you guys focus on, or other factors, which essentially discuss the fact, or like all of them highlight the fact that there's a lot of miscommunication and like like people are quite lost when it comes to, I guess, moving to new countries, getting that transition, because are we supposed to memorize a book to do with like all of the laws and regulations as an international student? So in that sense, I wanted to ask you guys, are these laws and regulations and all of these rules, is it something like you learned along the way itself? Because I'm sure some of them were quite important laws, and you may not have realized them until, I guess, an incident may have happened. So has there ever been a particular occasion where you're like about to do something, and then like one of your friends or teachers or the college just said, "Wait, hold on, that's kind of illegal here." So not illegal, but like we don't do that here.
Yeah, that's why I kind of mentioned the TV license one, because I messed up with that, because basically you can sign up for like online streaming services through having a TV. So I thought because my flat and my accommodation had a TV that I was eligible to do this. And then I got a letter saying, "Oh, you did not buy a TV license. We're watching you. We'll fine you £1,000." And I was freaking out. And then I showed it to my flatmates who are British, and they're like, "Oh, like it's okay. Just cancel your subscription." They know, like, they have a certain awareness that some international students don't know about these things. So they just said it's fine, like don't freak out, just cancel your subscription and just forget about it. So like definitely our peers helped a lot. Like my flatmates really helped support that transition. And a lot of the stuff was kind of just like out there. Like I wouldn't have to say that I had to look any like specific laws up or anything. Like it was more of a just learn as you go process.
Yeah, I totally agree with Reem. Also, like she was like initially when this question came up, like before we started this, I didn't really understand what it meant because for me, I didn't like. Reem was saying, "Oh yeah, my university explained this to me and did that," like she was saying, but that wasn't the case for me at all because I don't know, like even I got the same. Like I think basically everyone gets that letter where they're like, "Oh, we're gonna find you £1,000 if you don't set up your TV license," but I don't even have any online streaming platforms or anything. And I think this is one of those things where like you utilize the people that are around you. So like I use like some of my, most of the majority of my flatmates were from the UK, they were British. So just asking around and asking how things work there is essentially the best way to go about things. So I was like, oh, what is a TV license? Why do you need to use it? And then once I knew what it was, I was like, oh, I don't need to worry about that because that's not something that I'm doing, you know? So just utilizing the people around you that are used to, just like when people come here and they ask us questions, we know how the country works, how things are going on. It's the same thing, just use the people around you.
Yeah, and like definitely utilize the people who've lived there, because that's the best way to like learn about a country, because they know they've lived there, most of them all of their lives, and so they kind of just help you and guide you through the whole process, and they just are always there if you have any questions. So definitely utilize these people, utilize like accommodation staff or like your tutors in your law school or whichever school you go to, because they want to help you. Like I think that's one of the key things that you need to be aware of. Like people actually want to help you and they want to support you in your journey. So
Yeah.
don't, like if you're unsure about something, ask. It's not like
Yeah.
about, oh, you're scared to be caught or anything. They're much more like simple than that, you know.
Yeah, definitely. If you're unsure about something, I would definitely suggest to reach out, especially if we're talking about like the faculty, like within your university. There'll be so many teams that are like available and wanting to help. And even if you ask someone and they don't know the answer to your question, they'll direct you to someone who does.
Yeah.
So they'll help you in the fact that they're helping you get closer to the answer to your question if they don't necessarily help on themselves.
That's really great advice. And I just wanted to say overall for this entire episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking part. I know I can speak for myself, but I'm sure Rahul also feels the same way. Um, the idea of going to university next year is very, very daunting. Um, and your guys' insight was very helpful, and I'm sure it will help everyone that is listening to this episode now.
Oh, thank you. We really appreciate you guys like bringing these issues to light, because we were exactly in your shoes as well, and having such a resource would have been really helpful.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, just to wrap things up, I think the your page itself, like I just want to say, it's been quite informative and helpful, whether it's note taking or whether it's applying. Like there's quite a lot of information. So to those of you listening to this, I would definitely check out on Instagram at the Legal Leap. I think it's definitely like an extremely helpful page. And even if you're not like sure about it, like I'm not sure about law, I would say still check it out. But just to conclude the meeting or this podcast today, I just wanted to say like the whole concept of, whether it's studying law, whether it's comparing the UK and UAE, whether it's internships, whether it's common law, civil law, and student rights. I think it's extremely important for students to try and find a way to understand and learn about these issues. And I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for featuring on one of our first podcasts. And thank you and have a great day, guys.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
guys.
So much for having us and approaching us. We really appreciate it as well. And if you guys have any more question or anyone, please feel free to DM us on the page. We'd be more than happy to help.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank